Terima kasih. Selamat kembali semula. Slide yang seterusnya ini lebih kepada perkara-perkara teknikal. Kalaupun rakan-rakan sekalian telah tahu, mungkin ia peringatan. Kalau tak tahu, mungkin boleh jadi makluman baru. Tetapi dalam konteks pengalaman saya ini, biasanya saya suka melihat 3 perkara yang selalu kita tanya. Satunya ialah why, kemudian what, kemudian how. Dan kalau rakan-rakan sekalian boleh menghayati 3 perkara ini, kenapa, bagaimana dan apa, actually this is part of the whole education ataupun pendidikan. Apabila kanak-kanak masuk kepada darjah 1 katakan, dia banyak belajar tentang apa itu. Apa itu sifir, apa itu campur, apa. Kemudian dia dari satu peringkat di mana how, macam mana nak buat tu. Why ni lambat sikit. Walaupun dalam banyak penulisan, in many of the literature, they say, oh, why is very important. If the kids ask about why, then they are very inquisitive. Maybe. Tapi sometimes the why is actually about how. The real why ni comes with wisdom. Sebab dalam, saya rasa sampai peringkat universiti sekalipun, tahap 1, tahap 2 untuk setiap subject matter, kita hanya memberitahu tentang maklumat saja, bukan ilmu lagi. On that note, do you understand what is the difference between information and knowledge? Anybody can talk to me about that? Please, silakan.
Alah, Prof. Untuk kalau information tu dia lebih kepada something yang kita dapat, orang kata apa, macam as compared to knowledge, kita boleh implement, kita boleh guna. Tapi knowledge tu everyone boleh dapat. Knowledge tu how kita implement it.
Terima kasih. Yeah, I think that's about it kan. Information, so tak ada lagi lah nak katakan bahawa universiti ini gedung ilmu. Sebenarnya universiti dan mana-mana tempat sekolah sekalipun adalah gedung maklumat. Gedung maklumat, it's all information. Tools. How to do things, what to do with it. Kemudian contoh yang paling senang yang saya dengar ialah sifir. 2 kali 2. Tak susah nak hafal, nak ajar tu kat budak-budak. Tapi apabila you suruh kanak-kanak tersebut atau budak tersebut kata ada di sini ada berapa orang dalam kumpulan ni. Kalau dia mula terfikir bahawa ada 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15. Then it becomes information, it becomes knowledge. Knowledge is about when you stop less asking about why. Kalau ada orang tua-tua, I like to make this joke with my roommate lah. Kat rumah. Sampai je traffic jam. Why traffic jam? Manalah kita tahu kan. But actually you should know the why already. Because there must be something happen there. Sebab tu ada traffic jam. Sebab tu ada blok. Mungkin polis buat blok ke apa. So, if the older you get, the more why you ask, that means you terlupa lagi lah nak campur, nak dapatkan maklumat tersebut untuk menjadi ilmu. Oh, kenapalah politician ni nak suruh kita buat ni? Takkan tak tahu lagi itu kerja dia. Itu kerja dia. Apa kerja you? This is why I like to use these three things. Masa sekolah dulu kita guna term lain. Masa primary school, secondary school pun. Kalau cikgu nak suruh buat apa-apa, saya 18 tahun saya di Kota Baru, Kelantan. So, kalau cikgu tanya nak buat apa, you know, kadang-kadang kita nakal tanya dia, what for? What for? Buat apa nak buat? Kalau yang cikgu yang tak berapa cerdik ni bagi baling kertas buku kepala you lah kan. Tapi I have this good experience in undergraduate. Satu ni calculus 2 ke calculus 3 tak ingat. Tapi profesor ni dia nama Klopel, Professor Klopel. He's a German heritage with a very heavy German accent. Okay, so memanglah kelas ni tak ramai orang suka. Dah lah pukul 8 pagi. I don't know whether I told you this story, you know. I think I have. The point is, ada satu tu, kita budak-budak Malaysia tak ramai. So, one time tu, he came, the blackboard penuh. The last lecture tu pun nak cuci blackboard. So, biasa adalah orang cuci. Kalau tidak pun dia cuci sendiri. Lecturer cuci sendiri. Profesor. So, dia datang, kita tanya, where is the duster? Kita orang bukan saya lah, kawan-kawan yang lain-lain tu, dia sorok duster. Dia sorok duster tu, tak bagi. Where is the duster? How to clean this? Where is the duster? Buat tak tahu je dia. Dia nak suruh dia ingatkan dia nak balik ke, lepas tu kita tak ada kelas lah pagi tu kan. Senang sikit. You know what he did? Dia ambil handkerchief dulu, pakai handkerchief kan. Dia pergi kat hujung blackboard tu, hujung tepi tu, dia ambil, dia sapu. Okay, let's continue about integration, double integration. Tulis itu. Budak-budak ni pun balik tu kat dia duster. Cepat supaya dia clean up. Oh, yes, the duster. Pengajaran di sini ialah tentang tahap interaksi dalam penyampaian ilmu itu. This is a very rare occasion. I've never seen this before. And I don't think I've seen it again. Setengah lecturer kan, okay. Tak nak, tak payah, balik. Everybody free, boleh makan breakfast, boleh pergi tidur ke apa. But no, he didn't even make anything about, oh, you only tak nak belajar lah, apalah semua. Continue je. Because that's his role. Coming back again to the issue of your role. Apa peranan you? And the students realize that their role is to learn. So, okay lah. Dah cikgu nak mengajar, make sure throw him back the duster and he'll clean up. They even clean up also for him. That was one of the most memorable punya experience. Come back to that bakpo tu lah. Kalau saya di Kelantan, tanya cikgu, so buat apa? Bakpo? What for? Actually, bakpo tu comes from what for tau. You all don't know that. What for? Kita sekolah orang putih kan? What for? Jadi bakpo lah. So anyway, now we come to the last two parts. What is it? We have to know apa binatang ni. What this all about. And then the how to Prof. Azura and the team and those who are involved with this SWA akreditasi and Kopia will be more knowledgeable than I am. I might be a little bit out of date on the what. Anyway, on the how ni. Sebab how ni very tedious. Takes a lot of patience and a lot of cooperation from you all. So actually that's one of the reasons why you were invited or you were asked to come. Is to that, because perkara ni Prof. Azura seorang tak boleh buat. Even dia punya team, kalau ada 100 orang pun tak boleh buat. If you don't understand this. So insyaAllah dalam satu hari ini ke ataupun dalam pembentangan saya yang seterusnya ini dapat memberikan sedikit pandangan tentang apakah peranan masing-masing. What are your roles? And please, I do not want to repeat this, don't tell me that's the problem. The obstacle is the way. Find a way how to do this. Okay? Terima kasih. So kita mulakan dengan COPIA ni. Mungkin ramai dah tahu apa nama dia. Kenapa dia panggil COPIA. So COPIA is actually Code of Practice for Institutional Audit. Bukan accreditation tau. Because accreditation has been done under the SWA akreditasi. They have done those things. So now, the process for all the, berapa sekarang? 19 lah. 19 universiti yang ada SWA ni, is the audit part. So this is perhaps one of the main reasons why you are here and why I was given the pleasure to stay in this nice hotel and come back to Penang and meet some of the old friends. It's about audit, preparation of the audit. I think Prof. Azura pun dah beritahu ini. So, we need to identify your role, apakah peranan masing-masing, dan semua orang akan ada peranan tersendiri. Yang kedua ialah Code of Practice Program Accreditation, COPA. So, ini ialah for each school. Dan selain daripada the advantage of being a school system, that's why kita ada banyak program tau. Sebab kita school system. Kalau faculty system senang je. From Faculty of Science, Bachelor of Science. Mathematics, Physics. Kita ada school ni susah ni. So school ni ada, okay, that's one more difference, sorry. Kalau faculty, dulunya, tak tahu sekarang masih berlaku atau tidak, ialah one faculty will have one program. Bachelor of Science. Faculty of Arts, Bachelor of Arts. Arts History, Arts Geography ke apa ikut dia. Tapi di USM, many school can have the same program. Kita ada Bachelor of Science, Mathematics school boleh buat. Management pun boleh buat, Bachelor of Management. Science ke? Tak ada. But anyway, Social Science. So sebagainya. So this is kita punya anugerah lah. Jadi kita ada banyak program. So, but all same concept. So anyway, the next one is yang ni yang dua baru lah. Yang agak baru lah. Iaitu ODL, Code of Practice for Program Accreditation, Open and the Learning, Distance Learning. Ni banyak universiti sekarang, dia ada dia punya program yang dah ada dan kemudian dia nak buat ODL. This is another one of the first thing that USM lead. We are the first university in the whole country to have jarak jauh. But alhamdulillah kita mula, tapi kita tak berapa gah untuk memperbaikinya. But we should be actually the point of reference for any ODL. Sebab kita start distance learning education long time before any other universities. Yes. Arwah Tan Sri Musa punya gang. Dan kita ada apa tu, PTPM sekarang, this audio visual punya teaching yang sekarang jadi macam-macam dah. But anyway, you know, you have to appreciate that. But unfortunately, we did not move too much with that. Supaya kita jadi reference center for people who wants to do distance education. Dan yang paling baru ialah ni lah, Code of Practice for TVET program. Dan TVET program ni pula macam-macam cerita. This actually kita juga bertuah salah satu daripada Menteri Pendidikan kita ialah kita punya mantan Naib Chancellor, arwah Tan Sri Musa. He was the Minister of Education, handpicked by masa tu PM Tun Mahathir. Tapi apa ceritanya ialah begini. Dia buat saya, he was my first boss. Out of nowhere, I come back from sabbatical. I did my sabbatical. You tahu di mana? Have you heard of Rand Hill? Rand Hill Bersekutu. Saya punya 9 months, 10 months dekat Rand Hill Bersekutu. Masa tu belum lagi jadi public listed. I did that not for any reasons, but because I got a good friend there, who was one of the directors at that time, and because I spent more than 12 years abroad. Tak nak dah upload saya punya family, nak keluar lagi, nak duduk kat luar negara. So, alhamdulillah I got it. But the point is, it was Tan Sri Musa, arwah, who gave me the opportunity. After I come back tu, yang dia, out of nowhere, I jadi timbalan pengarah inovasi dan perundingan. And only very recently now, ada regulation, professional, you have to spend your time at industry to know apply. Allahu Akbar. You have to do that now. We have done that before. Nak dapat permission nak pergi buat dekat Rand Hill pun satu hal dulu. Kenapa? But time change. Anyway, so TVET ni, masa Tan Sri Musa became the minister, he was the minister, that was when the college university got started. I think ramai kawan-kawan sini yang engineer faham cerita ni. Okay, yang paling dekat dengan kita ialah UNIMAP, University Perlis. Masa tu riuh. IEM tak nak accredit them because dia punya curriculum tak cukup, teori sebagainya. But that was because the whole KU, College University dulu, was established under the observations. They sent a lot of people to go to Hochschule in Deutschland. High school German punya school. To do this hands-on punya engineering. Tapi apa boleh buat? Masyarakat, ibu bapa semua tak faham perkara ni. IEM pun did not help at that time. Yang tu sekarang TVET keluar. Oh, tak boleh accredit them because they don't have enough theory. They are not supposed to be the normal engineers. They're supposed to be engineers with skills. More skills. Tapi tak apa, itulah cerita-cerita lama yang perlu kita ambil perhatian. Okay? And now we are all, everybody nak buat TVET dah sekarang. And this is not only for Malaysia lah. I think Prof. Datuk Murshidi wrote a nice paper on this for the whole ASEAN region. And I'm very much aware of this because I'm quite active in this region. Everybody is trying to do this, TVET now. Apa dia? Just to make sure that the how and the what that you belajar is being done. During my school days dulu, orang duk complain dah lama dah. Oh, my teachers complain, oh ni lecturer, graduate physics, graduate civil engineer daripada Universiti Melaya, balik nak cari, nak determine there is a vacuum between the water in the pipe pun tak boleh determine. Buka-buka tak keluar air. Buat apa? Macam mana? Because they cannot apply the issue about that vacuum in the pipe, that you need to release the vacuum first before the water can flow. So this is a long standing problem. And you are also observing the same problem. Nama je lain. So my next take for you to remember is that everything changes, but nothing changes. Everything changes, but nothing changes. Kenapa? Sebab kita manusia. As long as manusia dipenuhi dalam dunia ni, nothing change actually. Same mentality. And I told this to my colleagues also about the DuPont bucket, they call it. Any learning curve only lasts paling tinggi one generation. After that, it goes back to ground zero. You belajar macam baru belajar balik. Paling tinggi naik 2 mm if you are very lucky in containing the experience that you have and how to do things the same way it was. So everything changes and nothing changes. Siapa di sini kenal Simon and Garfunkel? Bridge over troubled waters. Have you heard that song before? Okay, for those of you who did not hear, there's a song called The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. And one of the lyrics or implication of the lyrics is about everything changes, but nothing changes. Look it up. The Boxer, title lagu tu. This one another thing that you need to be reminded actually. Tadi kita pembuka tadi kita dengar satu pantun. Tapi yang ramai kita terlupa ialah kita terlupa tentang dulu kita panggil peribahasa. Ingat peribahasa? Kalau tidak peribahasa apa dia? Simpulan bahasa. Yes. Kalau dua perkataan, kalau lebih peribahasa. Actually, this peribahasa is universal. And it has more philosophical and thinking terms in those peribahasa. Ada udang di sebalik batu. Okay. One more before I go to the real thing. This is about current situation. About news. About news and about relativity. Perbandingan. And this is, alhamdulillah lah, I still remember my lecturer who talked to us on Communication 101. Kita kena ambil communication dulu masa saya punya sekolah. My university. Dia kata, because kita duk complain lah masa tu, muda-muda. Oh, Malaysia ni, dia punya media is controlled by the big boys, by the government. Banyak propaganda. Okay, fine. Dia kata, yes, you made true. But dia kata, how do you know it's propaganda? I kata, oh, very clear. They say all the good things about the government. Dia kata, yes, at least you know. If you know that is propaganda, actually that is very good, dia kata. But, there's two things about news. Ataupun kabar berita. Apa dia? Kabar berita yang you tahu tu, yang you dengar tu, sama ada daripada TikTok ke daripada apa-apa sekalipun, is because they want you to know. If it's a big secret, nobody knows. Only one person will know. Or 2% will know. So whatever that you get in the news or whatever that you get anywhere, tak kira lah CNN ke, BBC ke, Al Jazeera ke, is because they want you to tell. They want to tell you that. So don't think that, oh, this is very new. Because they want you to know. That's why they tell. And the second point that my lecturer used to tell me is that you must always ask yourself, what is the angle? Melayu kata, apa udang sebalik batu tu? Why did they tell you that? Either they get money for that, is that part of their job? Fine. But it's a reason why they tell you. Nobody want to waste their time just talking about it and tell about it. Either they don't have enough work, like I said earlier, that they need to do this, but every time you get news, it's something they want you to know. Secondly, is because you must ask yourself, what's the angle here? Dia nak support ke, dia nak suruh kita sama-sama kutuk ke, or dia just tak ada kerja nak take your time to tell you about this. Or they, more importantly, they get paid to do that. That's what sometimes we forget. They get paid to do this. Any clever person who wants to do this, they must get something out of it. So they got paid already. But you pay them with your time. So there's two things lah. And then I think you all know good. The news, what news stands for? NEWS? North, East, West, and South. That's news. That's how the news comes about. North, East, West, and South. Every direction. Okay, so much for the ramblings of the professor or lecturer. Anyway, so this comes to this thing about MQA. Ramai orang benci dia. Ramai orang tak suka dia. At one time, one of the CEO, saya tak ingat dia punya, what is dia punya top man panggil? CEO kan? Chief Executive Officer dia ialah arwah Professor Syed Ahmad. And he used to be the TNCA of USM before he retired and joined MQA as the CEO. I worked with him, alhamdulillah, very close when I was at the corporate office and with Datuk arwah Datuk Syed Ahmad. Very clever man. Graduate USM, did his PhD in Yale. And he's just like any boy, any naughty kampung boy from Batu Pahat. And I was working together with him when they started to have Lembaga Akreditasi Malaysia, LAN. Sorry, Lembaga Akreditasi Negara. Or national ke? Something like that. But whatever it is, that was the beginning of the whole system. We were quite skeptical. Kata apa nak ajar lagi lecturer nak buat kerja ni? Dah cukup dah berapa PhD dah semua. Nak buat research lagi, nak tu lagi, nak jaga anak lagi, nak ambil anak lagi. Macam-macam. Ni nak solve lagi this thing. So but he was nice enough, or rather to his advantage, he kept sending me to all these meetings. So I was, alhamdulillah lah, was privy to the establishment of LAN. Daripada LAN jadi MQA dan sebagainya. So, but the purpose was actually, ramai orang mungkin tak setuju. LAN ni mula-mula naiknya sebab isu daripada penubuhan beberapa universiti swasta yang buat kolaborasi dengan universiti luar negara. Dia dalam konteks ambil program tersebut dan namakan di sini sebagai XXX University Local. Setelah beberapa 1, 2, 3 kohort yang keluar atau yang graduate daripada universiti tersebut, kita dapati bahawa degree tersebut, ijazah tersebut hanya laku di Malaysia. Hatta di negara mereka asal program itu tidak diiktiraf. So, kita berasakan bahawa kena tipu. Jadi untuk menjaga kebajikan Malaysia dan pengajian tinggi, kita masuk dalam konteks LAN ini. Kena ada lembaga akreditasi. Lepas tu bila dah ada ni, the private institution kata apa salahnya kita takkan kita saja yang kena akredit. Yang public university tu macam mana? Dia orang tu bukan pandai sangat. Gaji pun tak banyak. Takkan dapat yang best-bestnya yang pergi situ. So, barulah timbul MQA. So, dalam MQA ni, kita ada lawyer belakang tu. This is the part where I like to explain little bit of the legal aspect of MQA. Penting kerana ada dua perkara yang saya nampak berlaku di USM. Kesian. Satu di USM, satu lagi di another university. Di mana ada satu masa ketika dahulu ada pelajar graduate daripada medical rasanya yang buat macam-macam komplain, tulis hancur lebur. Kalau saya dah ambil dia, baling dia kat penjara. Isunya begini, saya tak tahu kenapa, di mana silapnya. Dalam program tersebut sebenarnya yang mengelolakan ujian itu bukannya USM. Dia ada dia punya, apa dia panggil? Conjoint Board. Pediatrics. Daripada berapa universiti semua ada Conjoint Board. Exam semua daripada situ. Marking semua daripada situ. Tapi dengan kaedah dan kadar cara manusia yang mungkin tidak banyak berfikir, you get to be on the defensive end. USM. This is what I learned, very important when I was at the corporate office. Never put yourself in the defensive end because you will spend 90% of your time trying to tell you that you are not doing it. I did not do it. It's not my fault. 10% je ada untuk go for offensive. So never put yourself in the defensive end. Ini berkaitan dengan kopa, dengan kopiah semua. Jangan sampai orang tanya, apa you buat ni? You tell them first what you do. Okay, so the point was that macam-macam. Sampai kementerian pun marah kat USM. Buatlah komiti nak tengok betul ke tak betul. Memang benda ni tak betul. Dia tak boleh komplain. Dia dah ada, patutnya kita ada kan masa di mana pelajar boleh tanya lecturer. Dia kata dia tak percaya pun ombudsman. Saya want the ombudsman to come here. Sebab ombudsman tak tahu apa dia punya problem. Ombudsman bias. That was very wrong. And nobody tells the university, tells the VC that this is not our problem. They should go to the conjoint board. Then once you are on the defensive end, habislah. Hancur. Another one example is the issue tentang satu universiti di Malaysia, public university, yang tiap-tiap tahun hampir orang komplain pasal, dia ada 3,000 graduate PhD. Apalah ni. Sorry. What's wrong with that? The wrong with that is that you jadi defensive. Why? Memang yang ialah ramai orang yang bertanggungjawab tak jawab. Kita dah ada kan mandat daripada KPT supaya kita produce more PhD. Okay. Tapi yang dia duduk sibuk kata 3,000, 2,000 ke 1,000 PhD tu, apa masalah dia? Apakah dia dah ada data bahawa 1,000 ni hanya 20 orang je dapat kerja? Yang 980 tak ada kerja. Then there is a basis. So again, I like all these issues that patutnya dekat MQA, when you see what MQA was supposed to do dan sebagainya, dan apa yang you dah buat, shouldn't put you on defensive end. So what's wrong? Kalau saya lah. So kenapa? Apa salahnya? Saya ada 1,200 pelajar. You tak cukup ni. Kenapa? Ada tak dapat kerja ke? You punya proses ni tak betul lah dapat PhD. Senang sangat. Sampai satu lecturer ada 20 orang. Kita ada MQA. Kita dah ada akreditasi. So, rasanya macam ada niat-niat khianat dah kan? Malice. There's some malice intentions in these two examples that I gave you. So, insyaAllah dengan 2-3 slide tentang MQA ini dapat memberi sedikit gambaran tentang apa yang bertanggungjawabkan kepada kalian sendiri dan apa yang dipertanggungjawabkan kepada orang lain. So you must not, again lah, the issue is that always throw, as a dean I was told by my bosses last time, dia kata you always throw the ball to the other court. Don't leave the ball in your court so long. Throw it back, let them work. Simply don't be on the defensive end. Jangan sampai orang lecturer ke ataupun VC ke menteri datang, you ni apa kerja you sini habislah tu. Dia tak tahu apa you buat. Ataupun apa yang you patut buat, you tak buat. Anyway, back to MQA ni. Tadi saya dah lebih kurang beritahu tentang ke belakang dia je. So ada sedikit sorotan. Dan ini akta dia. Dia akta 679. Satu akta untuk menubuhkan agensi kelayakan Malaysia. So what we need to know is MQA ni is by law. Kalau by law ni dia lambatlah dia akan ada di situ sehingga mungkin kita tak ada pun dia ada lagi. Kecuali ada perubahan. Badan Kebangsaan melaksanakan kerangka kelayakan Malaysia. Qualifying framework. How many of you know about qualifying framework? Tak apa, kalau tak tahu cari. I got a slide also for this. But anyway, untuk mengakredit program dan kelayakan pendidikan tinggi. So they do accreditation. Mereka adalah badan yang mengikut perundangan ada hak untuk mengatakan program ini akredit dan tak. Dan dalam konteks antarabangsa, mereka adalah sama tahap dengan badan-badan akreditasi yang bertauliah di negara masing-masing. So they can do not reverse tapi dipanggil complementary accreditation. So kalau kita sahkan penubuhan satu jenis MQA di mana-mana negara A, maka mereka secara automatik juga boleh mengakredit kita punya program. Mengakredit program di bawah penyeliaan MQA. Dan begitu juga sebaliknya. So there's no issue anymore katalah pasal kita punya graduate is so bad lah. Pergi kat sana pun orang tak iktiraf. And now alhamdulillah kita masih hidup, saya masih ada lagi. Now NUS, bukan NUS, Singapore punya university pun dah ambil kita punya housemanship. At one time kita punya housemanship, kita punya graduate students, medical graduate tak laku. Dia kata dalam paper lah. Sebab belajar bahasa Malaysia. But they never tell us that kita punya Prof Datuk Wan Muhammad, first class medical from UKM, among the first batch, did his specialist in UK. Mana isu pasal accredit, tak accredit, tak taliah. So again, this is information that you need to know before you get on the defensive end. Kalau tidak, you tak tahu. So again, the word is reciprocal accreditation. So kalau kita accredit, kita juga satu negara yang ada jenis MQA ni, maka dia juga akan secara automatik ada reciprocal punya accreditation. Dia tak payah datang. Tapi ini adalah secara teori. So mungkin ada juga. Dan satu lagi ialah untuk menyelenggarakan daftar kelayakan Malaysia. This is the MQR yang Prof Azura beritahu tadi. Kadang-kadang kita dah buat semua tu, tapi terlupa nak pergi balik beritahu mereka masuk dalam MQR. Dan ini agak bukan nak be defensif, tapi ini memang banyak berlaku kepada universiti-universiti yang lama. UM, UKM, USM, terlupa. But now kita tak boleh dah kata terlupa ni. Okay, terlupa tak ada, bukan lagi excuse. So this is the one that I like to also highlight, yang atas ni sikit, tentang on the formation of the MQA, the akta lembaga LAN itu dimansuhkan. So there's no more LAN after MQA. For MQA, usually what they do is we need to go through this framework and then barulah diregister. Dan satu lagi perkara yang mungkin banyak kali kita dengar ialah, dua perkara tentang MQA. Satu, menyusahkan manusia, menyusahkan hidup kita, ambil banyak masa tentang ni. Yang kedua ialah, dia kata MQA ni sebenarnya masa saya di dalam jawatan kuasa itu, kadang-kadang kita menyusahkan universiti, terutama swasta ataupun universiti-universiti publik yang baru. Oh, ni tak betul lah, tu tak betul kan. Oh, bukankah MQA ni patutnya memudahkan? Memang kita memudahkan, tetapi kita juga perlu memberitahu apa yang tak betul. Kenapa? Kenapa? Ialah kerana akta. Apa-apa akta secara spiritnya di Malaysia ataupun di mana-mana negara adalah untuk melindungi rakyat dia. MQA is there to protect the public for any misrepresentation of their program. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. So it's not about making sure that the public university punya industry flourish in Malaysia, apa ni duk macam-macam, dan public university pula kena buat benda ni, dah lah kita banyak kerja lain lagi. But it is to protect the public. Seseorang yang masuk universiti itu akan mengorbankan duit, masa. Dan apabila dia keluar, oh this one tak accredited lah, tak ke salah tu. So MQA, dia punya role is actually to protect the public, to protect rakyat, supaya kalau tak boleh tak boleh accredit. Of course you can tell me many things about this, that some things happen, but that is the role of the people above us. At our role, we say that this one tak boleh accredit. In many cases. Okay, so anyway, itu maksudnya. Tujuan utama MQA. Seterusnya ialah tentang kerangka. Ini di kerangkanya. Dan kerangka ini sebenarnya timbul daripada banyak perbincangan. The main issue dulunya tentang content dan time. Apakah masa 4 tahun itu wajib ataupun 120 kredit itu wajib? Apakah seorang yang boleh buat 120 dalam masa 2 tahun tu tak layak atau layak untuk graduate? In some places, many places now abroad, boleh. You boleh masuk universiti pun at the age of 16 if you're qualified. And then how many years you spend tu is another issue. But the point is this, that you need to have a framework supaya senang, semua orang faham. So dalam framework ini ada dipanggil MQF level, and this, mind you, is already being used by many more people already, or rather many of the countries in the region, in Europe dan sebagainya. They will ask you first of all, what is the graduating credit? They ask you the level 1 to 3. So di sini dituliskan certificate dan sebagainya itu 1. Kalau unitnya, kreditnya 30 jadi sekian. Jadi kita setiap program yang ingin dibangunkan di mana-mana universiti, IPTA ke IPTS, mestilah mengikut kerangka ini. Kata you nak buat masters, it's a new program, very interesting program dekat Taylor College. Anybody heard about that new program? Macam mana you all ni? Tak tahu kompetitor. Taylor, they have a new program now. They call it PPE. Ini, yes, Bachelor of Philosophy, Political Economics. This is not a new program. Oxford has done this. And our good friend KJ, not KJ Ratnam, but KJ, is a product of this PPE from Oxford. And also if you follow those TikTok, this apa namanya, bukan dia punya podcast, the YouTube punya tu. There is one very prominent guy now. He's an Indian American English born tu. Atio kan nama dia. He talks, he's very vocal person. He's also a PPE graduate. Not only from Oxford, he says he's from College of Christie College, I think, which is the top college in Oxford. Anyway, point is that PPE. So PPE ni nak kami apa? Nak panggil Bachelor of Arts ke nak panggil Bachelor of Science? And there's another program sebelum saya berhenti, bukan tak lagi di MJA tu, ialah satu program daripada Tsukuba University, tapi dia dah buat program tu, dia letakkan di bawah Universiti Melaya, University of Wales. This is also another interesting program. The program ni project based, undergraduate ni. What their intention, the purpose of that program was to make technical people more good in their administration, as also in project management, as opposed to a special program called Bachelor of Project Management. But my point here is that I'm trying to tell you there's going to be many more. In fact, from USM sendiri pun mungkin. But you need to focus and say what you want to do, how you want to do it dan sebagainya. So MQA is never, at least I know lah, is never obstacle. Kenapa sekalipun yang MQA anjurkan sebagai garis panduan, is not carved on stone. It is something to be debated. If you have a reason why you are doing it slightly differently, tell them and explain to them. This is part of their learning process too. Okay? Of course, you say they never want to listen. That's fine. That's your role. But your role is you need to explain it properly. You need to tell why you did not do this. Either you forgot to do or you don't have records. But it is not carved on stone. And this is another, orang kata apa ni, another default punya excuse lah by kawan-kawan kita dan saya sendiri dulu. Oh, kita tak ada waktu dulu. Oh, kita buat cara lain. But you didn't tell it to the assessors or the auditors. Anyway, so you can see that it goes all the way now to the PhD, 8, Masters, 7, so forth. So kita banyaknya dalam konteks 7, 6 dan 7 lah. Sebab untuk PhD tu, usually by coursework ke apa sebab dah ada dah dia punya guideline. Dah mixed board dan sebagainya. Medical, ya. Medical ni pun satu cerita juga dulu, orang tak faham. Dia punya MMed, the first joke that I get from Prof. Tahir. Tahu Prof. Tahir kan? Prof. Tahir ni perangai dia macam saya juga lah. Dia kata dia orang Perlis. Kata, you know how big is Perlis? Kalau you main golf, you tee off, bola masuk kat Thailand, dia kata. That's Prof. Tahir. That's he's very good in these words. But what he was saying is that USM ni buat MMed, dapat MMed, tapi bila buat postgraduate, nak panggil apa? Dah dapat masters, dah akan undergraduate. But I think those comments help to develop this new MMed program kat USM and also in Malaysia universities kan, where they have the 4-year program now, very strict, 2 years clinical versus the FRCP ke, the Fellow of the Royal Surgeons, Physicians. And actually a lot of people are thinking about this better now, except for the last few years ke, last 2 years ke, ada kontroversi pasal all this. But it's controversial yang pasal USM punya program kan. Tak, actually, that one to me is no-brainer. You datang rumah saya kan. Saya kata you nak naik rumah saya, you buang selipar. Kalau you tak buang selipar, tak payah naik. Tak payah nak cuba innovation. Naik, orang halau lah. Then crying that, oh ni tak betul. You must believe in the medical profession. They have their own ways of doing it. If it's not right, tak betul, dah lama dah orang. Sebab, okay, I do not know what happened to that program now. Dah dapat dah? Huh? Okay, fine. But you need to make a case. Jangan orang kata jangan buat. Sebab kita kat MQA dulu, you ask first, where is your book of knowledge? What program do you follow? Which standard do you use? Kalau dah tak ada, tak itu pun. But I think okay lah. But this is part of the talk that you need to give and tell. Complain, kalau you buat law kat luar negara, balik kena buat CLP. Hello, you coming back to Malaysia? You follow the rule lah. You nak masuk USM pun ada rule dia je kan. Jangan duk complain kalau you dah janji nak masuk. Nak perbaiki, okey. Nak perbetulkan, baik. Sebab dia salah. Okay, so last question on this. So the last part tu lah, the APEL thing. I think USM pun dah dapat few kan? APEL. Ada apa dah? Zaman-zaman purba dulu masa saya, kita dah buat ni. What we did was, we are taking in technicians daripada the MNCs, the multinational di apa ni? Di Bayan Lepas. They are all mainly diploma. So dia nak upgrade. Dia nak buat degree. So what we did was we prepare exam. We prepare an entrance exam. Alhamdulillah masa tu kementerian agak loose on that. And kita terima yang mana yang lulus. And then because we started with peningkatan untuk geng kumpulan J, technician. Yang dulu jadi lab technician dulu, SPM aja. So nak tingkatkan dia kepada master, HSC dan diploma, kita buat benda-benda sama juga. Kita buat dah benda ni. Kita panggil dulu Diploma of, siapa ingat ke? Diploma apa? Teknologi tu. Makmal. Teknologi makmal. Dan semuanya hilang sebab universiti tak patut buat diploma. Anyway, but that was something that we do very well. Kita train technicians yang daripada SPM or MCE nak tingkatkan dia. But long story short, memang semua dah jalan dan kita dah buat. Cuma sekarang renung balik apa yang kita telah buat. Kita mungkin buat cara tak betul, kaedah tak betul. Perbaiki. Dan okay. Last question here. How many of you understand or know the meaning or the difference between units and credit? Tolong angkat tanganlah, saya dah letih ni. Okay. The difference. What is the difference? Ataupun adakah perbezaan di antara unit dan kredit?
Saya tak pasti, tapi unit graduasi, kredit mungkin bilangan kredit yang diambil oleh pelajar untuk mencapai unit graduasi.
Almost the same, almost right. Anybody else want to try this?
Unit itu adalah berdasarkan bilangan khusus yang pelajar ambil. Manakala kredit setelah dia pass dah dapat contoh C kat atas baru dapat kredit.
Alhamdulillah, yes. Saya sendiri pun lama juga duduk di USM baru faham benda tu. Unit lah, kadang-kadang tulis unit, kadang-kadang tulis kredit dalam buku panduan. Kata apa ni, error ke? Yes. So unit is what you need to do. How many units you need to have before you get whatever level that you want. Ya, bila you dah pass, you dapat kredit. Tapi kalau you F, you tak dapat kredit tu. You kena buat lagi. Sampai 120 ke, whatever 150 ke you have, you get it. Macam tadi, pagi tadi, ada bincang dengan kawan-kawan. Ni satu, mungkin this one lebih kepada orang yang beragama Islam lah. Tapi I think it's important for everybody to know. Apakah beza di antara alim dengan ulama? Looking at me, you want to try this?
I think alim maksudnya yang apa yang nak cakap, yang fasih lah dalam bidang tu. Ulama is higher than alim kot.
Maybe anybody want to have a try except those yang saya dah beritahu tadi? You nak try? Jom.
Translate bahasa Prof apa ni, alim berilmu, ulama tu ahli, individu yang berilmu tu.
Logical kan? Anybody else want to try this? Sama, okay. Okay, orang yang dah tahu begini. You nak try? Tak apa. It's actually a issue of singular and plural. Si Anu orang alim. Bila ramai orang alim, jadi ulama. And this is across the board, Christianity ke apa ke. But you see how we have not learned these terms properly. I also learned this term quite not so recently, tapi masa dah dekat nak pension, terbaca buku-buku yang dengan jelas memberitahu. Then this book is not even from a Muslim. It's from a historian telling me that the difference. Itu kita kadang duk marah kat orang alim lagi, lepas tu marah kat ulama lagi. Terlupa. Orang ulama ni banyak alim dalam tu. Alim tu seorang. Then this is across the board, across all religions, same. Okay. Sorry. Ada lagi tak? Tidak kena. Yeah. This is just the write up lah. In terms of the law and the legal part. What is the MQF? Sebenarnya MQA pun ada problem in the systems to update this. Because dia mungkin pada masa sekarang dah ada, tapi dulunya susah kali ni. Then after you dah tu, then masuk dalam MQF. Then dalam MQF pula ada masa. So that's why mereka dulu sangat mengalu-alukan lah suara akreditasi ni. Sebab kurang kerja untuk dia orang. So, but you, on that note, you must take the responsibility. So, dia adalah pada satu masa tu proses pemutihan. Dan proses pemutihan ni yang program dah accredit tapi tak masuk dalam tu ataupun tak declare, USM, UKM memang problem lah. Masa saya dulu pun tengok kadang malu. USM tu macam-macam problem ada. Anyway, this one is a little bit about other organisations yang banyak tentang academic bukan accreditation tapi assessment dan sebagainya. Yang antaranya yang mana saya banyak terlibat ialah AUN-QA. AUN tu adalah pokoknya dan QA itu adalah bahagian dalam AUN. Dan saya membawa ini kerana dua perkara. Yang pertama ialah penglibatan saya. Yang kedua, ianya ditubuhkan dalam sekitar 2000 ataupun kurang daripada 1 tahun 2000 dan ada 10 founding members. Dan daripada setiap unit country, setiap negara dalam ASEAN akan will nominate 2 universities. Dan alhamdulillah USM dan UM adalah founding members. Dengan itu kita USM adalah board of trustees dalam board tersebut. Mereka telah grow a lot. And there are scholarships, there are mobility programs yang mana pelajar-pelajar kita yang dalam konteks kita adalah founding members tu diberi keutamaan untuk program-program tersebut. Dan saya, seperti saya katakan lebih awal tadi lah, saya memang bersyukur, alhamdulillah, bersama mereka from the beginning until the end. Until now. Yang tak tahu lagi di mana. Tapi sampai sekarang saya masih lagi dengan mereka. Dan itu itu pun kebetulan masa penubuhan ini, arwah Tan Sri Musa was there. And dia punya KP dia tu masa tu ketua pendidikan ialah Datuk Hassan Said, mathematician from USM. Okay, they are all these good people. Anyway, and the secretariat sekarang telah menjadi telah dijadi akta ataupun charter untuk ASEAN members. So they are more now, ada surat beranak yang sah lah. Dulunya dalam bentuk cooperation dan sebagainya. Dan tujuan kami dalam QA itu, AUN QA itu adalah untuk harmonization of the academic program. Dalam 5 negara ASEAN pada waktu itu, kita punya vision was to make sure that the graduates of the countries in ASEAN are able to find jobs in other parts of ASEAN. Untuk demikian, kita perlu mendapat ataupun memberi perhatian tentang qualification, tentang degree di setiap universiti. Sebab kita bertuah dalam region apa? Region apa dalam bahasa Melayu? In this region, we are blessed because we have many colonial masters. Kita ada British Malaysia, kita ada Dutch in Indonesia, kita ada French in Vietnam, kita French and Russian actually from Vietnam, and Cambodia ada lagi sebagainya. So we have the same thoughts, we have the same thing about Senate, tapi nama berbeza. Jangka masa pun juga agak kadang-kadang berbeza. Dulu kalau masih ingat, di Indonesia ada Dr. Randes, DRS, ataupun sebagainya. Tapi dalam usaha kita sejak beberapa 25-26 tahun ini, kita ingin selaraskan. Kita selaras tak bunyi tak elok, tapi dalam bahasa Inggerisnya harmonize. We want to harmonize. We are not going to make things equal, but we want to harmonize that so that everybody understands with the purpose of the graduates when the ASEAN community, when it was ASEAN community formed. Apalah you ni. Kan, community ASEAN. Bila berlaku community ASEAN. Tak apalah, I leave you to that. Anyway, was to make sure that the graduates can find job in the region. And alhamdulillah, it's true now. This is the region that is the most progressive, the biggest, one of the biggest market. And although we are not very rich, but we are here now. So alhamdulillah, this was our intentions, to make sure that the program orang faham daripada mana pun, kalau dia nak kerja di sana sini semua boleh. Itu, dan just sebagai penutup sebelum kita rehat sekejap lah, 10 minit letih. Soalan mungkin better. That the AUN QA itu dulu kita pun ambil program dari Baldrige, all these other things lah. Anyway, and the world also is actually having their own ways. And on that note, I think kita di MQA pun adalah among the earliest. Although at that time memang kita banyak mengutuk dan macam-macam, all these things. And then sekarang pula dah ada pasal ranking pula. So, but it's nothing to do with ranking. MQA is nothing to do with ranking. You must remember that. MQA was set up to protect the public. So if you have any problem, you go back to that question. Is it doing this thing to protect the public ataupun tidak? Kalau tak, then you must tell your say. Beritahu. But their purpose was that. So itu adalah antara dan banyak lagi lah isu-isu tentang yang apa nama ni, Washington Accord lah. All these are all scam. Big scam. Yalah, because you have to, how much you have to pay them? SCSB lah, macam-macam. Apa, kalau you nak pergi kerja kat tempat tu dia orang bagi free? Tak, juga dia tengok juga muka you kan. Okay lah, you got Washington Accord, boleh lah kerja sini. Tapi saya tak nak you. Apa you nak buat? You nak pergi balik ke ASB kata, oh you kena bayar balik lah duit you bagi kita semua ni. I'm telling you this as a information. Bukan nak hasut you. Bukan nak beri masalah. But this is what we have to do. But if you do it with purpose, dengan cara sedar, penting. Dan tadi kebetulan bincang dengan Prof tadi, dia kata kita sekarang jadi mechanical lah. Memanglah. And I think you should invite Yeo Kah Heng, Dr. Yeo Kah Heng from USM, from School of Chemical Sciences. He did this banyak dia buat kerja tentang ni. Apa dia panggil? What was his program called? Bukan self-awareness, apa dia panggil? Anyway, you talk to Yeo Kah Heng. His School of Chemical Sciences, I think he graduated UTM. And then that time there was a few of them who we took, and I told them, you pergi cari universiti yang bagus. And he got to Oxford, and when he came back, dia kata, I want to do this more than my chemistry. I kata, go ahead, as long as it can help the people. And then he's actually very, 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 very useful outside. People like Intel, everybody is asking him to talk. Dia punya first statement, dia start is, apa dia tahu? Dia kata, you ingat tak bila you nak pergi ambil duit dekat ATM? Mana-mana lah ATM dekat USM ni. You masuk kad, pom, 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 pom. Dan you balik kat kereta, you tanya balik. How much you ambil duit tu? Tak ingat lah. Kenapa you ambil duit? Tak tahu. Dah automatik kan, jumpa ATM nak ambil duit. His point was that you must be conscious of everything you do. And then this one, sorry lah, dia balik kepada kita punya cerita orang Islam nak semayang. Jangan buat ibadat jadi adat. Don't do things mechanically. And this is for everybody actually. If your job is to come and teach and become a lecturer or whatever you want to do, you do this mechanically, you will not know what you're doing after day. And lo and behold, he was trying to get in touch. I told him about this. I kata, oh, this one macam orang nak semayang lah, nak khusyuk, nak tahu niat, nak ingat apa kita buat ni. Oh, dia kata, can you get me in touch with IKIM? Not IKIM Radio tu, apa ni? Yang pusat, apa ni? IKIM kan? Dia kata, can you get, Yeo Kah Heng, you can get me in touch with anybody there. Betul lah, saya kenal one of the Director General at that time. Rupanya, IKIM dah mula benda ni. About 5 years, or even less than 10 years before that. So, again, my point is that we have done a lot of things. We try to do a lot of things. Tapi kalau kita sebagai peserta tidak waras, bukan, tidak conscious, tidak sedar apa yang kita ingin dan tidak sedar tentang apa kebaikan, then you just go down the drain. You just do because you need to do. Not because why you want to do it. What for? What for you wake up this morning? Might as well sleep. What for you come into the rain and datang this conference, workshop ni nak dengar. Tak siapa budak ni. Sembang lagi. So again, please, need to be conscientious when you write your PLO. Even if you don't understand, try to understand. If not, then just do it mechanically first. But make a time, take note to understand why you need to do all that. Okay, so please, tak ada apa-apa kan nak soalan ni? Yes, silakan.
Assalamualaikum Prof. Prof, saya nak tanya sikit, kalau macam sistem yang saya faham lah, kita start dengan dekat program, kita start dengan COPA, kemudian kita buat untuk institut COPIA, lepas tu MQA pula akan buat satu lagi sistem, apa tu, dia akan kumpulkan semua COPIA daripada semua institut, lepas tu dia akan diaudit oleh satu lagi international body. Cuma dia akan diaudit oleh international body lah. Lepas tu cuma saya nak tanya, sebab saya tengok map ni, saya duk tanya, so kalau macam tu, MQA, kita boleh katalah program kita ni sebenarnya diiktiraf oleh, kalau dah diaudit oleh international body, maksudnya program kita ni diiktiraf oleh ABET, diiktiraf oleh ANECA dan sebagainya. So, tapi kenapa ada juga program-program kat Malaysia, masih lagi, macam mana nak cakap, dia dah dapat MQA, tapi dia ambil juga macam suplemen daripada, okey, pengiktirafan ABET, sekali lagi dibayar pada ABET. So, perlu ke benda tu?
There are two things here. Maybe this is the misrepresentation. Apa yang saya ingin beritahu ialah tentang isu pengakreditan, isu auditing, certification dan sebagainya, bukan sahaja di Malaysia. Banyak lagi tempat dia orang dah buat. Okay, you punya soalan tentang this thing. Untuk MQA sebenarnya, yang paling, dia tak cukup tangan. Yang pertama. Yang kedua ialah dalam MQA untuk pengakreditasi, kita kena tengok sama ada program itu profesional atau tidak. Sebab tu sekarang dah keluar pula TVET dan apa satu lagi tu, badan tu. Yang jaga TVET ni dulu apa ni? Dulu MQA satu lagi? MBOD. MBOD. Bagi macam-macam. But apa yang kita buat ialah, yang tu dah technical dah sekarang. Semua ada TS sekarang. Actually chemistry lama dah ada. Chemistry is one of the only program which is actually a professional program but was not noted as a program, as a professional. Because kita ada akta. Kita ada jabatan, kita ada akta kimia. So those who wants to sign the analysis ke dulu sebagainya yang kerja di jabatan kimia are professionals. Tapi tak ramai orang nak tahu ataupun people don't understand chemistry. Anyway, point was that this professional body, kalau dia dah kena follow ABET ke apa, dia kena follow. Sebab MQA hanya akan menggunakan pengakreditan oleh yang dipersetujui oleh professional body tersebut. Gitu juga medical, accounting. So, just because you already get, but kita follow professional body, will follow whatever that they think need to be. Banyak lagi dia punya loopholes in this issue. Sebab tentang kesedaran, orang tak faham, dan banyaknya tentang duit lah. IEM nak duit je. Medical board pun nak duit je. When they all do this, they get money for their professional bodies. So anyway, anything else? Okay tak? Sorry, did I answer your question? Oh tak? Tak jelas?
Contohnya Prof, kalau macam ada program-program yang bukan bukan profesional punya program, yang saya tengok ada setengah universiti lah, dia contohnya dia ambil daripada akreditasi luar, yang saya rasa kenapa dia ambil akreditasi luar sedangkan dia dah di-accredit by MQA juga. So jadi sebab sepatutnya setara lah kan Prof?
Tapi dia, untuk yang tidak profesional, dia akan ada dipanggil book of knowledge. Program book, sorry. Program book kan? Prof Azura. Saya terlupa dah nama. Program book kan? Untuk program yang tak ada profesional. Program standard, sorry. Program standard. PS, program standard. So dulunya macam mathematics, physics, microbiology, biology. First thing that the auditor come in, dia tanya, program standard you apa? Mana ada program standard? Kita guna program yang macam dekat sekian-sekian tempat je. It took some time before they understand. So these are usually the programs yang perlu masuk dalam yang dilakukan secara terus oleh MQA. Untuk professional, they will pass it to the professional bodies. So now dengan TVET, dengan apa ni? MBOT dan sebagainya, they got their own thing. Sekarang dia masih lagi dalam keadaan penyelarasan. Tapi ni isu lain lah. Isu tentang power, isu tentang duit, siapa dapat duit, MQA ke, MBOT dapat duit ke, nak bubuh apa depan you ke apa sebagainya. So anyway, anything else? Please, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is there's a good article written by my friend about this tentang relative siapa yang baik, siapa yang tak baik. Actually, from my understanding, tak ada siapa yang, you cannot compare oranges to apples. At one time, US Kimia, di Pusat Penjajahan Sains Kimia, kita choose to use the Royal Chemical Society accreditation. Sebab apa? Sebab nak tunjuk kat USM dan everybody else that actually MQA tu MQA lah. Tapi kita nak juga this one abroad, mahal. So we stop after that. Tak cukup duit nak bayar those auditors from UK to come and do. But point is that there's no such thing as which is better than that. If you think which is better, you tell the accreditors. Tapi dia kata, you masuk rumah saya. You buat jugalah saya punya. And for all these other international accreditations, kita punya, I think USM punya spirit was to help the students. Betul tak? That is all, apart from the PR issue yang menteri nak cakap kita punya program ni antarabangsa dan sebagainya, is naluri kita ialah untuk membantu kita punya graduate, itu saja. If they get just USM, MQA, kita tak ada duit nak buat BSB, what to do? Tapi kalau kita ada duit, kita nak buat tu untuk dia dapat cari kerja di luar negara ke di tempat lain, kita buat. We have a program, I think the USM Kimia started this. We have this Co-Tutel program. 2 program daripada USM dan dulu kita panggil dia Henry Poincaré, sekarang jadi Université Lorraine di France. Okay, you know what this program is all about? Program ni PhD. Kita buat setahun di sini ataupun setahun di sana, depending on where the students register. Then, after 3 or 4 years, budak ni dapat 2 degree. Dia dapat PhD from Lorraine and PhD from USM. Oi, macam mana ni? Memang heated argument in the Senate. Masa kebetulan tak sampai ke kementerian lagi. Kata apa ni, tak aci lah. Budak ni buat satu kerja dapat 2 degree. Buat satu tesis dapat 2. So saya kata, so what's the problem? What's the issue? Kita buat program kita, to be fair, we did not change anything. PhD at USM from chemistry. Dia kena buat kursus ni, dia kena buat ni, dia kena buat tu, dia kena thesis, Dan kawan kita kat sana pun ada dia punya regulation, they follow. So when they do, we did not change anything in our program for PhD. Entrance level ke apa dia. So I don't have to bring this to the Senate because there's no process akademik dia tak berubah. So kalaulah Lorraine University kata, oh kita juga iktiraf, so what's wrong? What's the problem? Dia yang iktiraf, bukan saya suruh dia iktiraf. Dia nak iktiraf. We know why they do that. Very clear, they need postgraduate students. So some of the work that is done here also done there untuk tunjuk dia ada graduate student there. Tapi yang penting ialah apa benefit to the student. The student got 2 degrees. The student can go and work abroad and say, I want to use Lorraine punya PhD lah. Ikut dia lah. Orang sana terima. And then Lorraine kata dia bagi. So, it's for the benefit of the student. Kalau student tu tak boleh buat kerja betul-betul, that's not our problem. Why is it to be our problem? Because student tu tak boleh perform. You must think this carefully. This is how you get into the defensive end. I think many, in fact sekarang, I think you all kenal lah kan, Prof. Hazwan di Kimia. Is one of the product yang dah graduate Prof, yang dah retire Prof, Afidah. Memang pening kepala dia, oh dalam Senate habis. Kata what's the problem? Oh tak aci. Tak aci tak apalah, you punya tak aci. Oh tak fair. Tak fair, fair siapa? Fair for you, for the student, I think it's fair. We didn't break any rules. It's just like saya bawa Hasnul, Prof. Hasnul pergi, ni kawan baik saya. Then jumpa kawan ni, dia kata, ni pun kawan baik saya. Okay, what to do? Dia yang pilih. Saya kata. So you must always go to the basics, the purpose. Kita clear. Because satu kita boleh berjalan. Supervisor, paid for. And then what everybody do not know was that tuition fee in Europe was only 1,000 per year. 1,000 euro. Where can you get, you nak pergi buat overseas with that kind of fee? And then that one actually developed into another program yang kita kerjasama dengan Lorraine. At USM, kita ada MSc Instrumentation. 1 year program, coursework. Di Lorraine, dia ada another program, they call it Masters of Science ke Masters Material Science. 2 years. So kita, sebab kita kawan lama, I think we celebrate that this year kan, 25 year anniversary. Tak ada orang datang pun, sian. It was actually in the country that's one of the most lifelong living cooperation yang berlaku hingga 25 tahun. This master's program, what happened was this. Because of our close relationship with them, they look at our 1 year program, they kata tak apa, kita iktiraf that one, French group. We'll recognize your coursework punya program as our 1 year coursework there. So when the student finish here MSc Instrumentation, they got 1 degree already, they can go to France, Lorraine, and continue to do Masters in Material Science, just the research part. They get 2 program degree. Kita tahu the reason why they do that. Because they need students. Tak apalah. Win-win. Dia dapat masuk dalam rekod dia, dia ada student untuk buat masters. Can help them to do research. And kita pun tahu dia punya intention is that hopefully that master student continue to do PhD. Tak apa. That's a student's choice. Allahuakbar, kita tak tahu. But we did that for the benefit of the student. He get 2 degrees. Again, this one pun, maaf lah, I do not know what happened, but nobody tak nak dengar, tak nak tahu. Kita pun tak banyak war-warkan, I do not know why. But it was one of the good things. And of course, the other one was dengan Nagaoka lah, and UT. Yang tu ada elemen-elemen malice in stopping the program. But anyway, again, to conclude this, the issue is accreditation. Everybody will have their own. So kita nak masuk rumah orang lain, kita kena pakai cara dia. Hatta kita nak pergi rumah kawan sekalipun, ada dia punya adab, tata tertib dia. And then di Malaysia we do this. And one last thing about MQA is that while I was there, kita pula juga tanya kadang-kadang, MQA ni apa? Dia ni tahu semua ke? Dia ni yang accredit orang macam dia ni Tuhan. Siapa accredit dia? You should ask that to your professional organizations. Who accredit them? Dia keluar macam-macam cara. So who accredit them? You are not God, kata. So yes, MQA took that note, and memang sekarang kita get cross accreditation. We get it from New Zealand. I didn't know, I forgot what was the last one. Tapi point was that we get another people to accredit us also. I mean bukan accredit, but some auditing lah pasal what MQA is doing. And just like USM, the biggest problem is the issue of flow process. Sebab macam Prof. Azura kata tadi, it's all about the system. So kawan kita daripada PPKT, this is sekarang dia apa sekarang? PPKT lagi? PPKT Colonel? Captain? Colonel, yes. So you security ni lah, PPKT ni. And nowadays I think that's the last thing. Because it's too long already kita being complaining about flow, information kat mana, apa semua. Masa saya mula-mula masuk dulu pun, orang bengong. Mana nak dapat information? Tak tahu mana, berkata. Satunya dah nak tahunya pasal mana daripada pendaftar sini. Nak tahu bilangan staff. Ni cerita ni saya dah beritahu kat dia orang. Staff kat USM, berapa orang kita nak report? Sebab berubah lah. Setengah tu tak confirm, setengah tu temporary. Macam mana nak cari? Pendaftar tak pandai simpan data lah apa. Saya beritahu dia orang, dia pergi cari kat mana data dia tahu. Where is the most authentic data about the people who work at USM? Bendahari. Dia pergi kat bendahari, tanya payslip tahun ni berapa orang. Kalau tak dapat payslip, kita tak dapat gaji, merayau terus. Tak tunggu seminggu pun. Pergi tanya tu bendahari mana saya punya gaji, tak masuk. That's the most authentic data. So this is where you need to be clever in looking for data. So data ni tak payah kira lah, sampai kiamat pun orang duk cari mana data ni, tak cukup, tak ada data mana. So mungkin PPKT kena penambahbaikan how to get the data, the flow. Because number 4 tadi, and just to be fair, dalam there is a new penambahbaikan kan, Prof. Azura, untuk institutional audit ni. And it's all emphasizing on management. Process flow, IQA, how the information get retrieved, how you collect information, how you show evidence. So I think, come what may, it is about how your processes, and with this issue of IT, you must make it easier and facilitate the colleagues at the university. It is not a one-man job. And I did an institutional audit abroad, to be specific, at the De La Salle University in Philippines. They have the same problem. 5 years, duduk nak buat program. And one of the biggest problem, Prof. Azura and Colonel kita, is that the system people not only talk to Prof. Azura and her team, they need to talk also to the dean. They need to talk to the bendahari. They need to talk to the pendaftar punya group to know what are the information that they want. You know, basic. Last one, sorry. When we first learned about Excel, masa last century, we were all talking about how to make tables. Apa. So my professor was telling me, dia kata, everybody know how to keep data. Everybody will know how to simpan barang. Simple lah. You punya, sebab you muda-muda lagi tak ada yang mana nak pension. Simpan kasut kat mana, simpan rekod pun tahu. The biggest problem is what? Is to retrieve. Tak payah cakap lah, saya take me 2 years to clear up my room. Dapat buat artikel, oh nice, oh simpan. Oh, on nak baca later. Lepas tu nak cari balik tak tahu kat mana. Now I have the same problem even on the PC. File mana itu duduk? So again, key is that it's not about how to keep it, it's how to retrieve it. In order to retrieve it best is to talk to the end users. The system people, they are expert, dia tahu macam mana nak buat dah. Nak simpan kat mana, nak bubuh kat mana, parameter apa-apa semua. But how to take back depends on the end users. And the end users are all here. Unfortunately, some are not here. But these are the end users yang nak simpan data dan nak collect balik bila Prof Azura ke IQA nak minta data. It's never too late. That's the good thing. It's never too late. You can start. Start, and inshallah, if you have a good plan and do it properly, you can get it done. Okay? Itu sajalah.